three and say a prayer. Down for love and up for air. Underwater, overjoyed. Water for a thirsty soul. Water for a thirsty soul. Baptize me into your love. Oh, my spirit's overcome. Body, mind, and skin and bone. Love, I'm gonna make it known. Love, I'm gonna make it known.
Yeah, I'm coming alive with you. I'm coming alive with you. I was living a lie till you. I'm coming alive with you. All the people say,
Resurrection day is here. Bells are ringing loud and clear. Caterpillar to a butterfly. Risen to another life. Risen to another life.
yeah, I'm coming alive with you. I'm coming alive with you. I was living a lie till you. I'm coming alive with you. All the people say, all the people say, you're in my blood, my veins, in every word I pray. You gave it all for me. I'll give it all for you. Oh, I'm in love with you, overwhelmed by you. And if the world is listening, this is my confession. You are mine.
Lost everything I had inside a year. Faith and hope, I lost a lot of tears. Spoke up about the things I saw outside. Turned it back on me, swore I'd die. Hearts abandoned, accused and stranded. It's nothing to me, forget it happened. Until it's show up, it start to blow up. The critics mumble, keep me humble. Oh my God, you gon' have to open up their eyes. I don't really think they see me, Lord. You gon' have to help them come alive. We've been trapped inside the devil's lair. I don't think that we can breathe the air. People wonder how we get about. I'ma go ahead and say a prayer.
Thank you, Father, for this day. I thank you for what this weekend symbolizes. I just thank you for your life. I thank you for your death. I thank you for your blood. And I just praise your name every day. In your great, great name, amen. we're going to be in Hebrews 10. I've been kind of drawn to Hebrews last couple of weeks. And I don't know if we're going to do much teaching on it. I was kind of hoping we'd be blessed by our pastor today, and it was going to be kind of a game time decision. And as you can see, I guess he just couldn't, man up and he's not in here, is he? Anyway, so like I said, this week, I got a general idea of where I'd like to start going to for the next few weeks. Oh, Nan made it. We had a interesting thing happen this week that for the water department, and it's not going to be as funny because I didn't have to walk around in poo, but it was still kind of exciting, and I'm going to brag on Jim Griff a little bit. but then I'm also going to throw him under a bus because years ago we had a water leak up on 15th Street. I don't know if y'all know where Dwight Montgomery lives. It was right across from his. Mr. Carpenter had built some duplexes, and I actually wasn't in the water department at that time, but I don't know if y'all know Mike Dukes. He was about chest deep trying to fix this water leak. We couldn't get the water shut off. So, me being the team player I am, we have a thing that's called a wraparound, and it wraps around the pipe wherever the hole's at, and then you got to squeeze it together to get this long bolt to latch over these teeth that kind of come together like that, and then you just tighten it just as tight as you can get it. If tighten is a real word. But, oh, there he is. Best boss ever. Anyway, my arms were a little bit longer than Mike's, so I could keep my head above water as I reached down and squeezed it together. Well, he'd have to hold his breath and kind of go underwater a little bit to get that bolt started. Then once you got it started, we would just do it all by feel. Do what?
Then you go and grab the taller than all.
Well, no, this is where Jim Griff's going to be thrown under the bus. A few years later, as I'm driving around in quarantine, and I noticed there's another leak about 30 yards, not very far from. If you drive by, you'll see a little break in the asphalt that we've never fixed in the years, just a little bit further down. And anyway, I'm fighting the COVID. I call it in, hey, look, I think there's a leak. I'm sorry. Anyway, the guys, when I talked to them when I went back to work, oh, yeah, we had that fixed in no time. That was a piece of cake. And I'm like, what? We battled it for a full day, soaking wet. They said, oh, yeah, Jim Griff went up there, found out where to turn the water off and shut the water off. And I'm like, wait a minute. I know he was standing by the hole when me and Dukes were jumping in. And anyway, having said that, we've had a problem. Tell you what, let me read our verse first, 10 and 14, Hebrews 10, 14. And y'all may have read this, but it just jumped out at me this time. For by one sacrifice he has made perfect forever those who are being made holy. Do you have a King James also? Now, do y'all catch that? By one sacrifice he made perfect forever those who are being made holy. The King James says, for by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified. And if you looked up the sanctified, it's being made holy. That's when I looked up in the old concordance. By one sacrifice we were made perfect, but we are constantly being made holy until the end. Did y'all catch that? Anyway, and you think, how does that got to do with the water leak? And I'm going to make, like I said, it's going to be story time today. I'm going to have to shut her down a little early. We've had an issue down, about a block up from where the Atkinsons live. And this has been a problem, I'm going to say, for about 19 years. I know that because I've been with the city almost 19 years. And this, you wouldn't think, Jim, you think that's about 40 feet of pipe, 20 foot of pipe? Not much. I mean, just enough for two cars to get across. Little bitty line, but it constantly leaks. So we're constantly tearing up the road, constantly getting back in there. And when I say constantly, I've got a helper that's been in there 4 or 5 times. I think it's been like once a year. And that's not counting the 6 or 7 times I was in, and then probably the 6 or 7 times when I wasn't related to the water department. But we needed to fix it. Not just fix it. We needed to make that where it would never leak again, where we can fix the road. And deep down sometimes, you know, you would never know there was an issue going on until it sprung another hole, until it leaked to the surface. And we dug it up, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and we realized that we couldn't shut the water off, which normally is no big deal if you're just fixing a hole. But what I was wanting to do was cut through this line, do away with it. Everybody would still have good water. Water would still circulate. This was just something that didn't need to be there. Sometimes in our life, we have things that just don't need to be there. And if we leave them covered up, one day, it's going to come to the surface. Now, we had it halfway fixed. I got it disconnected from the line on the other side of the road. But in the process of just trying to do it myself, we caused another problem. In the old days, I'm trying to hurry. In the old days, they just couldn't tap into a steel line with say, like a 2-inch hole. It's hard to do. So they made a few little holes, which was easier to do with the drill. Well, they used copper pieces. Well, that copper on one of them, I had just bent over for a fast fix, because that's what I was using to see, hey, do we have this water off? And if it was shooting out about 20 feet, no, we don't. Now, when I bent it over, it caused a kink in the line, and that's what was actually leaking this time. But instead of going back in to fix it, I wanted to take care of the problem. So we dig down. We've got, I don't know, every valve on that side of town turned off, but we still have this water coming out, which once again is not that big of a deal, except we dig up the hole, we make a cut with our saw, the saw dies out because there's so much water coming out. Then we make a call on somebody. I've done all I can do. And once again, I'm not saying Jim Griff is Jesus. But in a worldly aspect, for the city of Prague, if you have an issue and you cannot figure it out, and I'm sure he gets tired of it because this has been going on for, like I said, I've been with the city almost 19 years, and I'm pretty sharp sometimes. But, Jim, what am I doing wrong? I've got the book. I know where the valves are at, okay? I've sent 2 people to try to get on our wrench to shut it off. Now, Jim does have this special ability to make you look goofy, because you'll have 4-foot cheater bars on both sides twisting this thing, and he'll come, and he don't look it, but he's strong. But in my 19 years doing this job, I understand when I was trained, the guy that trained me was scared he was going to tear stuff up. All right? But I've learned and watched Jim. If you think you've gone far enough, go a little bit farther. It's okay. You know, whereas before I was like, oh, it's going to break. I better not, you know. And the guy that trained me, I mean, he was good. I'm not talking against him. So I would think now, after almost 19 years, I would know that I can't turn this any farther. So we called Mr. Griff. He comes down. We've got a hole dug. The line makes a T. I've cut downstream, hoping that it would get the water off enough that I can make a cut up here. It didn't. So I've got actually 3 cuts in this line, and I'm standing there, can't see because I've had all this water, and we covered it with sand. Have y'all ever been pelted with sand blowing out of a hole before? I've got sand all over me. on my hat. I can't see what I'm doing. I'm waist deep in water. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so what do? We go to the man. And I say the man right there. He comes and double checks. And he's like, well, I got it a little bit more here, a little bit more there, but nothing's working. We've got a valve just right there where we're at that should shut everything off. But it didn't. So we're fighting it. And finally he's like, let's go up 7 blocks north. Okay, so now we're talking we're going to have water for about from 5th Street to 17th Street off. And it's not going to be one street. So, you know, you're looking at, what, 12 blocks. That's going to be probably this side of town. Anyway, I get the bright idea. Maybe going with the man ain't the right idea. Although I got all the respect in the world for Mr. Griff. As I'm shivering, because it's cold, I mean, it was in the 50s, but when you're sopping wet, I'm in the hole, water in my boots. I think, oh, dear God, please let this be the problem. Let Jim go up there, have one of his brainstorms, and figure out why we can't turn this water off. Even though that valve right there, I should have had from like 11th Street down turned off, and it wasn't. Anyway, about to give up. You know, I'm drowning in water, and I was actually through the whole thing thinking about that song, about how we're drowning until we finally just go to God, please. And then on that one instant, we're resurrected with him. We have life. And about 5 minutes after I prayed, I thought, we're just going to have to patch this up until something else comes along. So I started going over by one of my first cuts to put one of those little wraparounds around it. I'm trying to keep the sand off of it, which if y'all have never tried to dig a hole in wet sand, for every shovel you dig out, there's going to be 4 or 5 more come back in. As I'm sitting there, got my head down. Water's not blowing up on me because if you turn the pump off and cover the water up, or where it's spraying out, it just kind of boils in the ground. I hear something. It sounds like y'all ever, like in one room, hear water running in another room of a house? When you shut these valves off and there's water pouring out one side, you can hear it shutting off. And we still have our valve wrench on that broke valve. And I'm like, what? What has happened is Jim Griff came and had that turned. He didn't get much on it, I promise you, because I was watching him. Because I was taught by Steve Barnes, if you ever get stuck, be sure you stick it so another man can't drive it out. I wanted to be to the point where I knew the valve was almost broke, or was broke. So I got almost everything I had on it. So when Jim got on it, it was just a little bit. But that little bit caused it to shut down where now, okay, this valve, it might work. So 5 minutes after I prayed, why did I not do that 2 hours before I even made a cut? I got back on it with cheaters, and it was enough that 30, 40 minutes later we were done. And I'm telling you all this. There's life lessons in everything we do. There's problems you can try to fix yourself. But that's all you're doing is fixing it. Until you give your life we're made perfect as soon as we say, Jesus, please, come into my life. That's what we did when we got rid of this line. It will never leak again in that spot. Okay? Because it has been made perfect. And you might even say, we made it dead. So now it is actually made holy. It's, it's with Jesus. And as we celebrate today, remember what he did for us. It just took us 1 second. 1 second. But there's still people out there that are hurting, that are suffering. There's people we can go to. Hey, I've always asked different people, I've said it before, Mr. Griff, Miss April, we've leaned on her a lot. I've leaned on Pastor Jimmy Watts. I've leaned on just people that I was close to, just because I'm comfortable, not because I don't like anybody else, but who I'm comfortable with is who I go to. Our first person I should have gone to was Jesus Christ. Help me. What do I tell these people to help them fix what's broken? And remember, every day we're just one step closer to him, to just that perfect, holy, side by side at the banquet table, sharing one of his rooms. And I didn't want this to actually be a Easter message, just because I think we're going to have a lot of that going on today. But without his blood, and without him raising again to give us, hey, we're going to be okay. And even when that stuff's coming up in your face, soaking you, and you feel like, I can't breathe. It is hard to breathe when you got water blowing up in your face, and every time you take a breath, you got a mouthful of sand in your mouth. Just know it's going to be better. It's going to be fixed. And then over time, because time's going to come, we're going to dig up that road again, put some good asphalt on it. And that way, when Brian drives that pretty truck up there, he won't get no dirt on it. So anyway, praise God today, and remember why we're here. He is so good, so worthy. And thank you for letting me tell my story.